Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. It is 6 o'clock, and this is the Manitowoc Public School District Board of Education meeting, June 13th at 2023. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll ask Lori if you would call roll, please.
Christopher Abel. Biff Hansen.
Present.
Matthew Phipps.
Here.
Stacy Seldner.
Here.
Matthew Spalding.
Here.
Carrie Trask.
Here.
And Tony Blastelica.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, and we will start with public input. Are there any, I have forms here. Is there any other forms that someone wanted to turn in that haven't yet? Okay, great. All right, so our first guest tonight is Braden Meyer. Braden, if you would come to the podium and just state your address for us for the record.
Braden Meyer, 1710 Whitewater Drive. June is a special time for many people. It is this month of which a certain community deserves a great recognition and a great celebration. This month, the community to be celebrated are the many students who have the experience of receiving their diploma from high school. Congratulations to all of them. Looking back to last month, a few of those same students were also in Green Bay receiving an associate's degree. This was done through the Rising Phoenix program, a truly great opportunity. I found out about this program in early 2021. After reading about its intriguing aspects, I applied for it. Out of only 25 students who were taken into this program from my high school, I became the 25th student to be accepted for the second generation of Rising Phoenix students. After being accepted, I began my first college courses in the fall semester of 2021, when the pandemic was over and masks were still mandated inside. Since I couldn't breathe in a mask, as I always felt lightheaded very quickly after wearing one, and I knew they did nothing, I wouldn't put mine around my mouth and nose unless I was instructed to. My own advisor even threatened to report me to the dean of students because I didn't have my mask over half my face only 2 times in a row. Students who go to the main campus will find political activism overwhelmingly from one side. To give a few examples, I'll start with the 2022 Wisconsin Senate race when Mandela Barnes came and spoke at the campus. Flyers were handed out urging students to vote for him, yet nothing for his opponent. At my Green Bay graduation, the student speaker spoke about fake systemic injustices. I did not clap for them. In every class syllabus and public presentation, there is a land acknowledgement for the natives of Wisconsin. One of my syllabuses said that it is okay for students to be woke, and they use that word, not me. There are pride centers both at the main and local campuses. Events are constantly held for causes that originate from the left of center, such as encouraging climate alarmism. There was even a speaker who came into my class to make the false claim that it is hard to get a voting identification in Wisconsin, despite the fact that it is free for everyone. This year, they had an event where students could go ask a quote-unquote sexologist questions about intercourse. The most disturbing and disgusting thing I saw was every month posters were hung around which advertise a monthly, and I wish I was joking when I say this, but I'm not, sex toy bingo sponsored by Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin. It is morally degrading in every way possible. Even though all of that occurs, nothing even remotely to the right of center was featured anywhere. Outside of the main campus, all students, including Rising Phoenix, have to participate in an online sexual violence prevention training assessment. This included ideas and pictures from the LGB community, which were unnecessary and distracted from the main message. Another online assessment all students had to take was called the Brave and Bold Dialogues, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion course. This course wants to tell students how to speak and what to think, embeds them into a politically correct agenda, and encouraging them to speak about quote unquote constructed dialogues around inclusivity. Another thing that all students have to complete is an ethnic studies perspective class for their gender education requirements. These classes are very biased, and I can provide an example with the class I took to fulfill that requirement. I took a class called Multicultural American Literature. Outside of the assigned books, my teacher was pushing critical race theory assignments and questions that were unrelated to the course, attempting to state that it is true, and if you question her, you are being disrespectful. I ended up being downgraded since every time she brought this up, I stood against it, even though I did it with respect each time. She even said I was calling her a liar, and as she has been implementing that in her courses for almost a decade, even though I never said anything close to that or insinuated that in any way. She also tried saying race doesn't exist in one assignment, and when I pointed out the simple logic that you cannot say all whites are racist and race doesn't exist, she got frustrated and corrected herself to saying that race is only partially a social construct. In my professionalism grade, my teacher said I get a B because of my nice attitude toward other students multiple times in the same comment. I guess even she couldn't deny my respect in the end. Something I believe should be different about this program is that students should be allowed to choose their own first-year seminar. I saw many that I and fellow classmates would have preferred over the assigned Rising Phoenix seminar. My peers and I did not find that class very helpful. Now, I've not forgotten about the positives of this program, and they are big ones. Through this program, being able to go to more than one school has allowed me to meet many new people I might not have otherwise. This includes both classmates, professors, and guest speakers. A few guest speakers I met were Reed Ribble, Timothy Worth, and Christina Shelton, all politicians. I couldn't miss the opportunity to take pictures with both in-person speakers in a bipartisan manner. Another great thing is I become a member of the college fraternities Phi Sigma Pi and Phi Theta Kappa. It is truly an honor to be able to wear their cords and tassel to graduation. Public speaking is a class I would highly encourage for all students, no matter what field they want to enter. I had the most fun in that class out of all my years of going to school. The teacher who taught my class is on the complete opposite side of the political spectrum as me, but he graded me very fairly, and I ended the class with over 100%. When he was asked, he did say he is a socialist, but he did not put his own viewpoints in his lectures. The lectures were very unbiased. He also didn't mind me not wearing a mask, another positive to him being my favorite teacher. This is the type of teacher which makes students like me eager to get to class. Like any student, my experience was not 100% smooth sailing, but overall, this program is a positive one. I have overcome many challenges and gained more positive experiences than negatives. This is a program which will give students more opportunities faster in life. Every student who enters this program will have their own experiences. I hope that mine will help parents and students decide if this is a program they want to pursue. I appreciate the board for bringing this program to our district. This is a program which should continue for future classes as it gives a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that should not be missed.
Thank you, Brayden. Okay, and our next guest is Sarah Slatke. Sarah, if you could just say your address for the record.
904 North 43rd Street in Manitowoc. I first want to start with a quote before I get into it. All young people, regardless of sexual orientation or identity, deserve a safe and supportive environment in which to achieve their full potential. I am reading a letter on behalf of a student that is part of our Gay Straight Alliance at Lincoln High School. When I was a freshman at Lincoln High School, we were still in the high of COVID-19. My friends and I felt disconnected and awkward around our fellow students, and we weren't sure what to do. I talked with my friends about how we could get more acquainted with other kids that also identified as LGBTQIA+ youth. We talked with the teacher that we felt the most comfortable with and set up a club called GSA. We made a win sign up for May 10th, 2021 with the description, GSA, Gay Straight Alliance, a happy place for anyone and everyone. Because that's exactly what we wanted it to be, a club with the ultimate goal of it being a safe place for anyone and everyone, no matter their race, gender, or sexual identity, or any other factors. The first meeting had an overwhelmingly positive response with over 30 students in attendance. This was way more than we expected. And now that our club has evolved immensely throughout my high school years, we've gone from just hanging out to having a set agenda, an Instagram page that gives us a wider platform to inform other students about different gender identities, sexual identities, as well as the club as a whole, and small fun questions that help us get to know other members of the club. If you were a type of pasta, what would you be? Was an example. Our first meeting this school year alone had 60+ members, both new and returning. I remained part of GSA because I wanted to ensure our club kept our ultimate goal in mind. I also wanted to spread awareness about certain topics about the LGBTQIA+ community in a factual manner throughout our school community. Being in a leadership role for this club since the beginning has helped me overall feel more confident as a whole and has developed my public speaking skills. I know that this club has helped others in ways as well by the overwhelmingly positive response we get from students that come to this club every meeting. Thank you for your time.
The next guest is Sonia Vasquez. Sonia, if you could just provide your address for the record, please.
I don't want to state my address.
Okay, is it on your form here?
It should be.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. I'm Sonia Vasquez, speaking as an alumni of Lincoln High School and a member of Lake Shores United Visionaries. I'm here to comment on MPSD's policy AG 2240, controversial issues in the classroom. I speak with an understanding that this policy would be detrimental to many students within the MPSD system and ask the board to reevaluate. I encourage the board to recall a time in which they have been called the incorrect name or misgendered. It's happened to most of us at one time or another. It's corrected most of the time and we move on. But what is your response when the person keeps referring to you as the incorrect gender or wrong name? What happens when you know they do it purposefully? Utilizing a person's correct pronouns and names is a basic sign of respect that every student, teacher, administrator, staff, and community member deserves. As a 2011 graduate of Lincoln High School and member of the GSA, during my attendance, my experience was that we honored students' correct pronouns, names, and nicknames without question, no matter which side of the political aisle you fell on. The names, nicknames, and pronouns section of this policy is just one of the ways this policy falls short of showing humanity and respect to the students and staff of MPSD. Putting it forth would be a step backwards, even from 2011. I encourage the board not to pass and implement this policy. Thank you.
Okay, and I have one here to read. This is from Jennifer Gleichner. She could not be present tonight. Jennifer Gleichner, 1313 Flambeau Street, Manitowoc. Tonight, I call into question the proposal of MPSD policy AG 2240, controversial issues in the classroom. General questions I have about the policy are as follows. How will biological sex be confirmed? Will any medical or psychological documentation be required for students and families who request certain names/pronouns? If so, how will barriers to medical and psychological care for some students be mitigated in this process as to not create an inequity in the application of the policy? Will LGBTQ+ students who are not affirmed/supported at home be able to discuss this issue with school counselors in confidence? More specific questions I have include, is this policy the reason why the district has recently asking for birth certificates from students who have spent their entire academic career in MPSD? My child has access to medical and psychiatric health care that affirms their gender identity. If my child has recommendations from a medical and/or psychiatric professional that state affirming their gender is what is best for their overall health and well-being, will that be honored? Follow up to last question. If those recommendations are honored, then why should my child have the privilege of gender affirmation at school while another child who does not have access to the same care be denied validation and affirmation in the educational setting? This creates an inequity in how children are treated in the classroom and could be seen as discriminatory. The Manitowoc Public School District does not discriminate against a person's sex, race, religion, national origin, ancestry, creed, pregnancy, marital or parental status, sexual orientation, or physical, mental, emotional, or learning disability. Wisconsin State Section 118.13. Is it not discriminating by sex if you are insisting students disclose their biological sex to you, even if it makes them uncomfortable? Could this also not be construed as sexual harassment? WIA, quote, member schools shall ensure that all students have access and opportunities to participate in athletics without discrimination based on disability, race, creed, color, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, religion, age, national origin, or ancestry, end quote. As a member of WIAA, why would board approval be necessary? As a member, MPSD is required to follow their rules. If the superintendent decides a general neutral space for changing or restroom use will not be granted for a student, and this arrangement causes a physically or psychologically unsafe environment for the student, what recourse will the student and family have? Research shows that LGBTQ+ youth who have access to affirming spaces have lower risk of suicidality. If the intended outcome of this policy is ever found to be a contributing factor to a suicide, will the district risk being held liable in some way? Questions specifically regarding the involvement of board president, Dr. Stacy Seldner, in the development and implementation of this policy are: the board president, a licensed psychologist, in the document Guidelines for Psychological Practice with Transgender and Gender Nonconforming TGNC People from 2015 from the American Psychological Association. There are multiple guidelines that directly contradict what the proposed MPSD policy aims to accomplish. They are as follows. Psychologists understand that gender is non-binary, a non-binary construct that allows for a range of gender identities and that a person's gender identity may not align with the sex assigned at birth. Psychologists recognize how stigma, prejudice, discrimination, and violence affect the health and well-being of TGNC people. Psychologists strive to recognize the influence of institutional barriers on the lives of TGNC people and to assist in developing TGNC affirmative environments. Psychologists understand the need to promote social change that reduces the negative effects of stigma on the health and well-being of TGNC people. Psychologists working with gender questioning for and TGNC youth understand the different developmental needs of children and adolescents, and that not all youth will persist in a TGNC identity into adulthood. Psychologists strive to understand how mental health concerns may or may not be related to a TGNC person's gender identity and the psychological effects of minority stress. Psychologists recognize that TGNC people are more likely to experience positive life outcomes when they receive social support of trans affirmative care. Question: is Dr. Selner accepting of the negative impact her vote for this policy could have on her reputation as a practitioner? Does Dr. Selner regularly ignore guidelines from professional organizations? Does this call into question her ability to lead the board if she regularly ignores evidence-based information? Other facts about gender affirmation and mental health from the Trevor Project. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people aged 10 to 24, and lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning LGBTQ youth are at significantly increased risk. LGBTQ youth are more than 4 times as likely to attempt suicide than their peers. Research suggests that among LGBTQ youth, only 1/3 experience parental acceptance, with an additional 1/3 experiencing parental rejection, and the final 1/3 not disclosing their LGBTQ identity until they are adults. Another study found that LGB young adults who report high levels of parental rejection are 8 times more likely to report attempting suicide and 6 times more likely to report high levels of depression. Many LGBTQ youth lack access to affirming spaces, with only 55% of LGBTQ youth reporting that their school is LGBTQ affirming, and only 37% saying that their home is LGBTQ affirming. Fewer than 1 in 3 transgender and non-binary youth found their home to be gender affirming, and a little more than half, 51%, found their school to be affirming. The Trevor Project's research consistently finds that LGBTQ young people report lower rates of attempting suicide when they have access to LGBTQ affirming spaces. The community deserves a board and school district that makes decisions based on facts and evidence, not personal beliefs and feelings. Okay, our next guest is Rory Beatty. And Rory, if you would just put your address out.
1001 Sarah Miles Lane. Thank you. My name is Rory Beatty, and I am a citizen of Manitowoc and a recent graduate of Lincoln High School. I am here to speak regarding the controversial issues in the classroom policy that is being brought to the board tonight. I have concerns that if this policy goes through, it will go against our district's mission, core values, and be more harmful than helpful to our students. Our mission states that we are to engage and inspire all learners. However, in this policy, we invalidate the transgender community in our district. For example, we would be creating barriers between students and staff by requiring full parental consent for any discussion regarding gender identity and sexuality. This will directly impact people's ability to build positive relationships and demonstrate compassion to students who are going through an extremely difficult time, hence going against 2 core values, relationships and compassion. For instance, students need access to safe adults who can be a listening ear and allow the student time to process how to best communicate their identity to their parents. This isn't an easy thing to do for anyone. I have a close friend who was fearful of coming out to their parents, even though before them, they had an older sister who had already come out as transgender and was fully accepted in their family. I can't imagine how difficult it would be for students who do not have accepting family members to do the same. This policy also eliminates the ability for staff and students to display anything that shows support for these transgender students. When walking through schools, you may find posters that state "safe space for all." This is a simple but extremely effective way to show compassion regardless of a student's religious beliefs, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and gender identity. By ridding our buildings of supportive messaging and discussion, we are excluding our transgender students. When people experience exclusion, psychologists at the University of California discovered that the part of the brain that is activated in this instance, is the same part of the brain that is activated and experiencing physical pain. I firmly believe that this school board is not seeking to cause harm to any of our students. In order for us to create an environment that supports the MPSD's mission and core values, I ask that you vote against this policy. Thank you.
Thanks, Rory. Okay, our next guest is Dawn Erdman.
Good evening.
And Dawn, if you could just say your address for the record, please.
Yeah, 1824 Abbey Ridge, please.
Thank you.
I sent board member Tony an email in May. He was gonna pass it on to all of you here. I hope you got it. If so, please raise your hand if you read it. Okay. I used to teach students too in my nursing career, so I like to see if they do their homework. I just wanted to
What
come
was the
to,
topic? What was the subject of the email? I mean, I get a lot of emails, so,
you'll
what
find
was
out
it?
as I go.
okay, sure.
I just wanted to come to actually show you the American Creed my mother received on graduation from Lincoln High School in the early 1940s. It came from a Wisconsin congressman who was also a past Green Bay Packer. Apparently, they provided it to the students on graduation. This is what she got. I'll be brief and just want to summarize my email to you in person. The American Creed states values: freedom, equality, justice, and humanity. I was also taught that the United States was a melting pot of individuals. Unfortunately, there are those that wish to change these values by pushing diversity, inclusion, equity, not equality, along with the rest of the alphabet agenda ideology. I believe we have seen diversion, inclusion, and equity cause only division and probably confusion, especially in children, and especially the younger children. In ending, it's time for a return to common sense, along with the family values, and I support your policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Okay, our next guest is Colin Burnell.
Thank you.
Hey, Colin, could you,
My address is 4503 Broadway Street, and that is in Manitowoc. What is the purpose of schools? You may get a multitude of responses, but the most basic answer is to educate kids. This does not mean to take over a parenting role and decide that you know what is best for the child. This topic is very important to me. I remember being in this room arguing with 5 other board members with this place packed with angry parents who felt helpless and unheard. They were worried about the health of their child. The other board members asserted that this was what was best for the kid. I remember reading the labels of every mask I purchased in a store, but they knew better. I remember hearing parents concerned about the fact that their kid was breathing in Cheetos from last week all over their mask, but these people knew better. Eventually, they gave parents the right to make their health choices for their child again. The thing is, the damage was done. No apologies were given for the damage done. No admissions that maybe it wasn't the best choice. Hindsight is 20/20. But as a result of telling parents that they know better, we had a rise in behavioral issues, a decrease in performance, an increase in suicide, and other mental health issues. Missed opportunities like marching and smiles. But remember, they knew better. Parents know better. These are their kids. These are their responsibilities. These kids are theirs. They trust MPSD to educate them on proven theories and disciplines, not ideologies, or to be pawns in their political agendas. Trust is the key word there. Ultimately, the care, custody, and control is being given to you for a period of time in the day to provide a service to the community and educate the kids. It is not to undo the lessons that a parent may have taught, whether you agree with them or not. Parents absolutely need this Bill of Rights. When you have things taking place like they did in Sun Prairie, where an 18-year-old exposed himself to a group of 4 minor girls, then what is being proposed today is necessary. Policies like this help protect kids as well. This policy addresses the rights that all kids have rights, and not just a select few. Political ideology has creeped into every facet of this country, from sports to the beer you drink, to the TV you watch. Even the areas that are supposed to be safe havens for the exchange of free thought have been tarnished with the propaganda of political parties. Fighting to keep the propaganda out of schools and allow parents to instill the beliefs of their forefathers is the right of every parent, and it should not be challenged. Thank you for protecting the rights of the parents by voting in favor of this.
Thank you, Colin. And our last one we have today is, I'm not sure if I know how to pronounce your last name, but Melissa Bruchette.
Melissa Breckert, 11
Breckert,
Glenmont
sorry
Street.
about
That's okay. So I have a letter here from a GSA student, asked to be read for you guys. The student, I changed my name in 8th grade, but I've been in the LGBTQIA plus community since 5th grade. The LGBTQIA plus community helped me become more confident with myself. It also helped me with my mental illnesses. But my problem isn't with the people who attempt to slander or shut down our club. I'm upset because at school I can't even be myself because I will be made fun of by my classmates. We also cannot hang posters up like other clubs because we may upset someone. In my middle school, we had a club that went by a different name for LGBTQ plus students, and they never got torn down or got a complaint, but GSA is getting complaints. It isn't fair that GSA doesn't get to hang posters like other clubs, and it's not fair that GSA gets made fun of. It is not fair that it feels like GSA does not have your help with our problems. GSA was invented for a reason for everyone to be involved with the LGBTQIA plus community. Yes, GSA has its ups and downs, but it has helped many be open with themselves, and by not being treated like the other clubs, GSA can't help others like me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, that'll close our public input, and we're going to move on to our consent agenda. We have one document in the consent agenda, which is the special board meeting minutes. There was one change to the one that was presented in board book. Carrie was in attendance at that meeting, but he was not listed.
But I was not conspicuous. Yes.
So that has been amended in the copy that I have to sign here. So does this item, does anyone object to having this item in the consent agenda? Okay, are there any further discussions or changes about that?
No.
Okay, so I would need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Okay, Carrie and Matthew. Spalding. Okay. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, and then we're going to move into our report of the superintendent. And the first thing that was presented from Angela was our payment of vouchers. And this requires a first and second motion to approve the payment of vouchers that was presented in board book.
Motion.
Okay, motion by Matthew Spalding.
Second.
And second by Viv Hansen. Any discussion about the payment of vouchers or questions for Angela? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, and then also from Angela was our monthly financial report. And no action is required for this, but if there were any questions for Angela at all, we could take them at this time. And Angela, I just had one, how are we doing this time of year? So just kind of there's so many numbers in there, so it's just kind of how are we doing at this time of the year?
During May, there is not too much special activity, and as far as the financials are concerned, we received like some certain miscellaneous aids that we get from the state, like personal property aid. Those are part of just general aids we receive annually. So in the month of June, there will be a lot of activity because we'll have the settling of state aids, open enrollment in and all of those types of things. So there's quite a bit of activity that actually, encompasses, about $10 to $14 million of movement during that month. So overall, it's a low cash point as well for us, and we have final payrolls. So overall, we're doing well. We're projecting out for the end of year and working on final claiming, closing out purchases for the year. So it's a very, very busy time with what we do, but everything's going as scheduled and we're working through it. So.
Okay, excellent. So no action required. Our next one is the monthly donation list. And Angela presented this. There's no action required because there's no donations that are above that 5,000 mark. I'm sorry.
Are this time around.
Oh, okay. It says no action required.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So there are two. Let me open this just to.
And there is a Miracle Splash donation I'm just, maybe I'm missing it in here with what's in board book.
Actually, there isn't a document in board book.
Oh, okay. I can just highlight them and we can.
That would be great.
So there was
I'll
a
send it to each of you.
Okay.
As well.
Sure. Thank you.
There was a Miracle Splash donation, and I can have, Katie explain this a little bit more for $7,500 if you'd like to speak to that a little bit.
Sure. The Miracle Splash is a local organization that raises money to support students with disabilities in our community. They offer monetary donations so that we can purchase unique equipment to support students. So our goal is to purchase some adaptive swings for our playgrounds, a communication board. So many of our students that are nonverbal students with disabilities use a picture communication system. So there's a cool, huge board that can be part of a playground setup that uses picture communication so that students can communicate out on the playground. So it's a unique opportunity for us just to have some great equipment that we might not be able to purchase on our own and have readily available.
Excellent.
So that one would require action, and the second one that the information we'll get that to you is it doesn't need by our policy formal approval, but it's for $3,300 and it's from the James E. Dutton Foundation, and it's for projects and signs at the school forest. So part of the requirements of this grant are to have it acknowledged and approved by the board. So that's why I'm including that. They also have pretty clear stipulations for just proving 501c3 status. Now the district is not a 501c3 officially as a government organization. So I've already forwarded this onto the foundation board because the foundation as a 501c3 can accept it and as a beneficiary, we just have to, it's a means of routing it to meet their requirements.
Okay.
So the way it'll be used in the district, it'll be used for the school forest for these signs, and then we'll be forwarding the information for you to review. So it's really exciting, and Kelly Vaughan works very hard to secure any additional funding that she can. She does a great job with that, so I really appreciate her efforts with that. And then the only other donation to be acknowledged, Jademan Stamping had donated $2,500 towards the youth apprenticeship night that it occurred earlier in the month.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I would need a motion in a second to approve Miracle Splash and also the 3,300 James Dutton project grant. Okay, Matthews Fitz.
Oh, second.
And second by Carrie Trask.
I just have a question. Can we do this if it's not on the agenda? It wasn't posted.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, is it gonna hurt anything if it
The item
happens
is
next
the
month?
attachment was not, but like it was listed on the agenda, but I'm trying to pull up Andrew's.
Yeah, I can email it to them. That's not a problem. So
That's a great
So
question.
the item was there, but the attachment wasn't.
Yeah.
Right.
So it wasn't publicly known before now.
Is that
Does it
attachment?
have to be publicly
Well,
known before now? We
I'm
know
just saying,
now.
in
We know
in
now.
my other government jobs, you have to post it before you
Oh.
do anything with it. Now, maybe the rules here are different, but that's,
and we can
if
include it
we
next
don't have
month.
to do it, it'll
too.
be
It's-
better.
Just
not
table
to.
it to the special.
It's, the the items, and Katie can help correct me too. I mean, we're waiting to purchase other items, but I mean, we can purchase them in July too, in advance of the school year. So I mean, we're okay if we repost this in July and then bring it
We'll
forward.
have our meeting at the end of the month.
Right.
Oh, that's true, too.
So,
I'm thinking,
so we
yeah,
can add it then and do it there just to make
Just
sure
make
that
sure
we
it's
have it all.
proper and that's what.
Yeah.
2 weeks is,
I found it in, I'll send it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, so, would you rescind your motion if you
Sure.
want to do that? Okay. And then, do I have a motion to table this and just add it to the next?
I'll motion to table it and we'll add it to our second meeting of the month,
Okay.
special meeting, which is the
8th,
28th.
27th.
I'll
Okay,
second that.
second, okay, good. Okay, so we will, approve that next time. Thanks, Vic. for
Thank you.
pointing that out, yeah. Okay, and then, our next one is, personnel report. And, you received, the HR director had the personnel report, and that would require a first and second motion. So do I have a first and a second to approve the, personnel report as presented?
Yeah, I'd like to move, and I'd like to say I'm really pleased that Michael's coming back for a second year.
So Carrie Trask first,
Second.
second for Matthew Fitz. Okay, thanks, Carrie. Any other discussion?
I'm just wondering if,
That's
and I was talking with Michael a little bit before the meeting, is there a way to do exit surveys so we find out why we're losing a lot of people?
Here
We do,
that.
we do
exit
that.
We do those?
We just haven't seen
Survey,
them.
yeah. You and I were talking about exit
Interviews, yeah.
and I said that's pretty labor intensive. We do an exit
Do
survey.
we have any data
Yes.
from the surveys yet?
Yes, and we plan to present something, I don't know, it could be the end of June, could be sometime in July. And we're going to look at that and try to compare that with last year, or some of that kind of stuff. Yes.
Okay, I would appreciate historical data on that also.
I think we'll get as much as we can.
Okay.
School perceptions is who we go through.
Right now, we are planning to potentially have a retreat, where we will be discussing staff, current student and exit surveys.
Some of us that were on the board, before, I mean, we kind of felt shut out of knowing this kind of information, which is pretty germane to what we do. And it all gets mushed together and we get sort of general trends and tendencies, et cetera, et cetera. And we, when we asked before, when we had a different superintendent, we were always told like, well, this is confidential. Well, come on, it can't be both. It can't be both, I mean, we either have to have this information to do our job correctly, to know what the hell really is going on, why people really are jumping ship. Or, let's just forget about it. I mean, and just like pretend, we're in Wonderland or something. So, I feel pretty strongly about this, and I know a number of people at the table here felt strongly about it, at least at one point.
Yeah, just some background, Biff. We used to do it in-house and the board felt like, we didn't know if we were getting what we needed. So we had School Perceptions take that over. And we also do we do the exit surveys. We do a survey for students, a survey for parents, and also a survey for, staff. And so the plan would be in August to have a presentation on all that in line with our, strategic plan of wanting to look at those things.
It's
So
just a
that's when
concern.
we should-
We're losing people and we're losing good people. Much experience that have been around and if there's a why, it'd be nice if we knew that so we could try to change something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, my last comment is, I'm not been living under a rock or anybody else in the room here. People are moving jobs at a tremendous rate right now. Market is very volatile. The market is just completely, people are moving jobs every week. It's more than it's ever been. Obviously, I will say there's been a bottleneck because of COVID, and now it's people have moved on and changed professions completely. So that's my opinion. You can find the data to support it. I could if I'd like to, but it's been crazy.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Matthew?
And just to add on, yeah, it's a volatile market. Number one, we did have a good amount of resignations here, but we also have like almost three full pages of new hires. Some great work. So
just to make recognition of that. So I mean, like you said, they're coming. It looks like we got a lot more coming than we got going, so that's good.
I'd just like to observe that most of the people coming are 1 year, had no experience whatsoever. They're right out of college. They're at base salary. They have no experience whatsoever. Not that I'm discouraging, want to be discouraging people entering the profession, but you know, we're losing a lot of talent and experience in this system. And I think it's, you know, it's important for us to know. I mean, you know, there are suspicions and rumors, of course, why they're leaving. But it would be good to know, you know, why that is. And if there's, you know, because we did in the planning program, the planning plan, say, look, you know, we want to work to retain and improve and encourage and, you know, make teachers want to work here. And especially we want to restore this system to the excellence that it not so long ago had. And I think that, geez, you know, I mean, people are free to leave, of course, but I think this is more than the job market.
Just to touch on what you said, though, I was kind of going through and looking at this. We got 22 years, 14 years, 11 years. We got some good experience coming in too, Carrie. I don't see anything that supports all of that, but I do agree. And I'd like to see the new people coming in as well too, to be honest with you. You know, it's good to have new people coming into the profession.
Any other discussion?
I just want to, from an administrative point, but we totally support providing as much information that we can collect. It fits into our strategic plan in terms of obviously understanding as much as we can in terms of what we're doing to attract and retain. So we're totally supportive.
Yeah, good. Okay.
And Mike.
Yeah, I just want to share that, I think it was in January when I looked at the school perception exit surveys that they had at that time. I shared them with the personnel committee. There was nothing at that time. There was nothing that jumped out that said, okay, it's this, or it's this, or it's this. I do think that when we look at the next round of everything, we need to look at probably mid-July or so, because then we'll catch this whole thing instead of cutting it off at mid-June or something of that nature. And one of the things that has changed since Act 10. Prior to Act 10, if you left the district, you totally lost your seniority. The seniority was a big thing back then. The second thing is, if you left your district prior to Act 10, most often the collective bargaining agreement said the highest you can go into salary schedule may be step 6 or 7. Today, because there's no seniority, they move and that's not a factor. And the other thing that happens today is that for the most part, you're making X in this district and you move to another district, they're going to offer you at least X, but probably Y, you know, a little bit more. So every time they make a move, they seem to financially gain. So those are just some factors out there. But at the end of the day, we need to examine our exit surveys to determine, is there something that jumps out at us that we can control and change or do something better with.
And
So we'll do that.
I just want to say real quick, and Tony, you know, Mike and I have talked too about, you know, historically, and we want to look at all the data, whether it's not favorable to the school board, not favorable to Jim. It doesn't matter. It's always, any feedback is important so that we can look at it and do better. We should always want to do better. So we're going to look at it, and we're going to look at it, all of it, the good, bad, and the ugly. So, Tony.
To piggyback off what you were saying, Stacy, I agree 100%. We should certainly take a look at all of that. And as part of that, I think we need to go back to and look at the historical data as much as we can, because I don't think the problems that we're seeing today with staff turnover are unique to Manitowoc. I don't think they're unique to the last year or two. From what I've observed and learned, just being on the board the last year, it sounds like this is prevalent throughout education. So I'm more than happy to have that conversation. I just want to keep things in context and make sure that we look at the big picture. And then once we understand the environment that we're in, at that point, we'll be better positioned to make the changes we need to ensure that we're attracting the best people we can to help us move forward with our objectives.
And you know, the only thing that I'm gonna say that's gonna be unfortunate is because we were doing in-house and then moved to school perceptions, we probably only have a year and a half's worth of data. So we're not gonna get a 5-year picture. But, you know, because we wouldn't be comparing the same things. But again, I think it's a start. The data that we are going to have, though, is what we've kind of always collected is how many people resigned, how many people this, how many people that. And that is comparable. And I think we can get a good historical picture of that. And I do want to vote on this first, but then I also have asked Mike to present kind of a little bit of where we're at with our current personnel and hiring.
So if I could real quick, just to elaborate there or clarify, it sounds to me like in the last year and a half, we've made changes to the process that'll better position us long-term to monitor why people are leaving and make modifications where needed. Did I hear that right?
Correct. Yeah. I just want to make sure that nobody, I would love if we could take and say, let's look at the last 5 years of exit data. And it's not that we don't have it, but it's that we change systems, and to compare those two would be difficult.
My argument would be we are in uncharted waters with employees. And my example of that would be our transportation contract went up maybe 1% or 2% for the last 15 years, and it's going to go up 6.5% tonight. So I believe from that data, we are in uncharted waters for employee forces and where people are going to make expenses for everything because of our spending as a country. That's my opinion.
Okay.
One last comment, just in terms of some of the other things that we're aware of, is we have some people who left are coming back to the district.
Is this one principal one that we had and then left for a year? And then she went somewhere and obviously is coming back now? Obviously, so this is the better place. Grass isn't always greener. Well, that's good.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Matt, this person worked for I think we're talking about Courtney. She worked for the Manitowoc School District as a teacher, and she was an AP at Washington for a couple of years. And then she took an opportunity to go to Chilton as an elementary principal. She's been there 1 year. She's a Manitowoc resident, I think maybe a lifelong resident. And she got an opportunity to come back, and she's very excited to come back and lead River for going forward.
We're excited to have her. Good.
We sure are.
How many positions are we still trying to fill?
Well, we're going to get there.
You have to pass.
Can we
Pass
pass
the
the
motion.
personnel report? There's no other discussion?
Yeah.
Okay. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Okay, so then I'm gonna have Tony, hold your question because I've asked Mike to just give us where we're at right now with regard to your question. If he doesn't answer it, then you're first, okay?
All right.
Okay,
Yes.
Did you take the personnel report and the addenda together?
No, you
I
did
did
just the
not.
personnel
I
report.
did not.
Oh,
So we do need a motion and a second for the personnel
Personnel report and
addendum.
the addendum.
Correct, because there was
Yeah.
someone's name that was off.
I'll move.
I'm not on there.
I'll include that.
Okay, so Carrie, you're making a motion to,
Yeah,
Do a
for
new
the,
one
for
for
the
the
report
addendum.
and the addendum.
we'll just do a new one for the
Okay,
addendum since
I'll
it's
wait.
already gone through. Okay,
All right.
second by Tony. Okay, all those in favor?
I,
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great.
All right, thank you. So over the weekend, I went on Weekend, and I think I've talked about Weekend in the past. Weekend is the Wisconsin Educator Career Access Network that all 422 school districts use in the state of Wisconsin relative to advertising their positions, and then we as administrators going in and looking at all the applications. And there's some really positive things about Weekend. One of them is that every individual that applies gives authorization for everybody, for any administrator to do a reference check without the fear of litigation. So there's some real positive things that we can. It's through the University of Wisconsin-Madison. It's a very good system. So I went in there and looked, counted up what we have, and here it is. I'll just kind of go through this. This is what we currently have for vacancies posted on Weekend. We have 7 special education positions, 5 elementary, 1 high school, 1 middle school. We have 2 art, an elementary and a middle school, 1 sign language interpreter, one speech language pathologist, one support counselor at the middle school, 2 social studies positions, high school and middle school, 2 reading positions in elementary and middle school, Spanish at the middle school, a grade 5, a grade 4, and 2 5K positions, 2 science positions in high school and middle school, a school site, 2 ELL, English language learner positions at the middle school, 1 tech ed at the middle school. Those are our current vacancies. Now, with that being said, when I look at that, there's probably only really one area where I'm extremely relaxed, and that's the social studies. The social studies will come in at double digits, no problem. The positions we've had 20, 30 people apply. And you don't see that anywhere else with any other positions. The ones that I'm really concerned about, 7 special education. That's been a problem for a number of years for a number of districts. And we're working very hard diligently to, as soon as we have people we look at, we interview, we move as fast as we can so that we can be the district that gets the offer out there and gets accepted, and we have that person. We have the speech and language pathologist. Remember, this year we were 1 speech and language pathologist shy. So, that means other people in the district that are speech language pathologists have to pick up and have a little bit higher workload to get everything covered. We have these are the 4 that I'm really most concerned about. A school psychologist. Remember, you approved the school psychologist position. We had 3 candidates. 1 went to Appleton, 1 went to Green Bay, and 1 it didn't work out. And now we're struggling to get any applicants. So that's a concern. And a tech ed at the middle school, we made an offer, person accepted. A week later said, I found my dream job, sorry, but I'm declining the offer. So those positions are probably the most concerning. However, in this market, as we talk, there's such a shortage in everything. Even the grade 5 and the grade 4s, we have candidates, but I remember the days when we had 100 candidates. Now we're single digits a lot of times. So that's what we currently have relative to teaching. Administrators, I think we've done really well. We filled 2 director positions with me and Heidi at the central office. We filled the high school principal. We filled the Wilson principal, Wilson associate principal, Washington associate principal, and we filled Jackson, Riverview, Jefferson, and we basically are going to be filling Monroe this week. So what do we have left? Madison and Macon High School associate principal. So I don't want to say we've done good work. We've done good work, and we've got some good people, trust me. And we really feel good about where we're going. We think the future is bright. We truly do.
Any further questions?
Yeah, I would just say great work. I know it's a busy time of year for you guys, and I appreciate everything that you're doing and your team. If possible, I would love to see if we could, maybe with these personnel reports, if we can get something ahead of time just to kind of digest what you unloaded on us, that would be great. But I thought you did a nice job summarizing it, but that would be my only feedback. But you guys are doing great work. Keep it up.
So help me out a little bit. So with the personnel report, we'd like
just what that summary you just gave us at the end about just how many vacancies there are. And, you went through it pretty quickly, and I got up at 5 this morning, so my brain's a little bit slower than normal, but I'll get through it.
And I asked Mike to put this together on Thursday.
You did a good job. You did a good job with that. I was just saying if we can maybe just get that as an attachment too, that would be great.
I can keep you apprised of positions and where we're at and some of those things. Is just
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Yeah. Okay. All right, great job. Okay, so we next have our strategic plan update.
Just that we're continuing to work on this, every time we're working on the metrics and refining it, between now and August. We are regrouping, we're collecting our trend data on some of the metrics that we have. We'll look for the format to put it in. we have a template there that we left with the strategic plan, whether or not there's a better one to make it a little bit more informative. But we're on the final stages of that, you know, in terms of being able to make sure that it communicates well with everybody in terms of how we're doing.
Excellent. And then, district activity update.
You know, just a few things, and I might start off with, you know, occasionally when we're making changes, we'll receive questions. One of the changes that we made, and we've communicated that out to parents, was we, you know, through COVID, there was adjustments both from the federal, you know, in terms of some funding things, you know, to the local level. One of the things that we did was, foods, you know, we were providing breakfast to all people, and we were feeding them, we moved feeding into the classroom. Our focus is getting back to instruction as our primary area of work. And we are still continuing breakfast program, okay? But going back to the original rules in terms of, obviously, if somebody is eligible for having that finance, that will still be available. But we will provide, you know, that, but sometimes questions, why are we changing? Well, you know, there's a cost associated, there's no free lunch, you know, taxpayers pay for that. So at the end, the responsible here in terms of what we're doing, in terms of when people can't afford and they need help, and we can provide, that's great. But there's a cost, and anytime we're incurring more costs that isn't going into supporting instruction, teaching and learning, that's where we're going to try to leverage and direct our funds.
Any of the COVID money still on that?
No, that's COVID funds
Yes, we still have about $900,000
for the
left. And so we had to file a report with the state to say how we were going to use the excess funds, and mainly for capital needs as was the focus.
Oh.
Some other things then in terms of, it was a wonderful graduation. We had a great representation from the board, and it was just an honor to be part of that, you know, recognition, that tradition, the heritage that
We
we
know
have
how to
here.
do it in Wisconsin.
You sure
I don't know what
do.
you guys do.
Oh, you. I would agree. I would agree, but that was wonderful. I'd also like to recognize our Chips baseball team in terms of who were able to acquire the regional, being regional champs, and then they were advanced to sectional semifinals, you know, but they lost to Beaver Dam there. But what a recognition! You know, again, our top 5 by 2025. That includes not only academics, it includes bringing our sports programs back, you know, to what we are accustomed to. And also recognition to our 8th grade social studies classes from West and Washington. You know, they're in DC right now. You know, as part of, you know, this is American history, so you know, firsthand experience in terms of how that got played out in our capital. So it's really nice to be able to have that. So that's kind of my activity report for today.
Excellent. All right. Okay, there is no unfinished business. We do have several new business items. The first one is the WIA annual membership renewal. This was presented by our athletic director. And it was in board book for everyone to review. And I have it here to sign if it passes. So I would need a first and second in order to, and this would be a first and a second, or I'd be looking for a motion to approve the membership into the Wisconsin or WIAA.
So move.
Okay, good. And second?
I'll second.
By Matthew Spalding. Okay, any discussion about this document at all? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. I'm gonna sign it right now. Okay, and the next item that we have is we do have an out-of-state travel request, and it looks like just in some emails that you know, this kind of got to us a little later, so I apologize that we didn't get this to Spanish. This is actually a June 2024 trip, but they start doing the planning now. So this had a very nice presentation in it. if everyone was able to look through that PowerPoint, looks like a great experience. I got to do this when I was in 10th grade. We went with the senior award line, took us on a trip. So I think it's a great opportunity for our students. So this would also require a first and a second to approve the out-of-state travel request. Okay, Matthew Spalding first.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay, Carrie Trask second.
Yeah.
Okay, any discussion or questions about the trip or any of the documents that was presented? Okay, all right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, the next item is the pupil transportation contract. Now, this is the bus contract, and I believe it is the second biggest expense in our district. One of them.
One of the largest
Pretty big.
expenses.
One of the largest
yes.
expenses.
This one.
So this is the contract that, if you remember, the way that this contract is set up, the Grant Buses always likes to have a 5-year contract. So we're already in a 5-year contract with them, but 1 year has passed, and so we add on another year, so we are always at 5 years. So I would need a motion and a second to approve the pupil transportation contract as presented in board book.
Move to approve.
Okay,
Mm.
Fifth,
I'll
approve,
second
second, by Matthew Phipps.
Mhm.
Okay, say Matthew all the time. It's just-
Yes, too many.
Okay,
Too
any
many-
discussion
too many
about
syllables
this?
in this. Oh, we were talking about, wow, it's a pretty big jump, but, you know, they pay their bus drivers so little, it's, you know, it's probably a deal, so.
Right.
I don't know, we don't have any choice, do we? I mean, it really is kind of.
Not financially, but
Um,
I think Grant Buses is great. I think my daughter uses it. They pick her up right in front of the house whenever they don't just pass on by, and I end up having to give her a ride. I like to, I wish there was something that would tell them to hold on a little bit, wait for kids, but other than that, you know, it's financially, there's really, like you said, there's no choice.
Yeah.
I would also add that, you know, I ran transportation departments with 120 buses on the road.
Yeah.
And they're, you know, it can get very complicated very quick, and it can be a very, you know, sometimes the students are left on the bus. I would tell you, I have not had any concerns or, you know, expressed to me, you know, in terms of our transportation. And I'm well aware of the challenge of making sure that you have employees that you can depend on. And I've not had any problems, and they work well with me in terms of school closings. So it's been very favorable. And from my operating 2 large transportation departments, I really do believe that this is really a good return for the money, and it's local.
As a father of a student that was on Grant Buses this year, I was very happy with the communication that I've had, and the cooperation and just the positive attitude with the drivers. And when I had to call in and say that he was gonna miss the bus, everything's worked out really, really well. So I have nothing but good things to say about Grant Buses. And the relationship we've had with them over almost, 25 years at this point now.
I was just gonna ask, Angela, I know it sounds like this relationship's been going on for a long time and they've done a really good job. I know there's the recent increases, but it still sounds like overall we're getting a really good deal relative to the market. Is that right?
For sure. And I had included an analysis in here that, you know, just looking at comparables with other school districts. I mean, our routes, the amount that we pay per route compared to, you know, other school districts is very, very low. So, you know, if we would be paying like some of the other regional school district contracts with their larger carriers, Lamers, Covisan, are paying around $268 per route, and we would be paying $2.7 million compared to the $1.5 million that we're paying. So the amount per route is more than reasonable. And we have a great relationship with our school bus service with Grant Buses, and Steve's here to, you know, answer any questions that you guys may have as well. I asked him to join us tonight. So you know, so he's happy to answer any questions as well. And they're just so dependable, reliable, and we're just very lucky to have them. The rate increases that most school districts have faced have been close to 8%. in the area. And so, while we've had higher increases in the more recent years, you know, they've been very, you know, we've had very small increases historically. So we've been very fortunate for that. So, you know, they're excellent to work with, and you know, yeah.
I'd just like to highlight, some of the things he has in here. Because the bus price is going up 15%, it's relatively around $30,000. A cost and maintenance of the buses, about 10%, which is $21,000. One thing I do want to highlight is insurance has increased it, and he drug tests all his employees. Now that might not seem like everybody should be doing that, but actually state employees that are unionized in the state of Wisconsin don't need to be drug tested anymore for operators. So I would like to say thank you for, you know, having our investment of our children being driven around by competent adults that aren't doing drugs.
You said we do have a representative here from?
Yes.
Oh,
Why don't you come on up?
Oh, no, but afterwards I do have
Feel free
questions.
to ask questions if you'd like to. He's
I do have
happy to
questions afterwards. Oh, maybe he's gonna leave early, I don't know. All right, that's fine.
It sounds like, again, a really good deal for the district, which is great. I'm curious, as far as the budget impact, did we account for that increase? Or is that going to throw in curveballs knowing it's such a large amount?
Looking at the variables that have been shifting since the referendum, it's figured within the budget. Yes.
Okay.
I just had one question about the contract.
Correct.
And this is just educationally, it says, special education transportation will include 5 morning and afternoon buses and morning/afternoon CWD bus. Is that a
children with disabilities?
Okay, thank you. And bus for Riverview. Is that where all our children with disabilities are located? Is that why it's just to Riverview?
It's likely for early childhood purposes. That's where our 3K and 4K students.
Okay, thank you.
And for high cost transportation aid and special education aid costs, you can get aid if you transport them separately, and it's handled differently if they're mixed with regular education students. So that's why we have to separate some of that out for those purposes.
Excellent.
Just for further context, you know, there's always guidelines in terms of when you apply transportation, and we don't apply transportation within a 2-mile radius because that's considered a walking distance. And it's important to note that we don't transport within the city for the most part. That we handle through a contract with the city, where our students can ride city transportation buses, just so that you know the full extent of what we're doing here to provide in getting kids to school.
And I believe I don't have it in the analysis. I thought I had included it, unless I'm just missing it in my quick scan, but we pay around $170 per route per day. So that is about so we really are, you know, well below what average school districts pay. So I was able to pull several contracts to do the comparison and share that. So.
And just final, I mean, Angela, thank you for putting the extra comparison in that there. I know last year, you know, we know that, you know, Brandt has been serving us, but always want to look out to the market. And so I appreciate the extra information that you've added here, just to give us some more context. So I appreciate that. All right. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of entering into the 2023-2028 pupil transportation contract, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, and our next item is our student accident insurance, and this will require a first and second motion. This was presented in board book for everyone. So do I have a first and a second to approve the student accident insurance coverage?
Move to approve.
Okay. Ms. Hanson, and do I have a second?
No second.
Okay. And any discussion about the document or questions about the student accident insurance?
This is just incidental coverage.
It's a second point of coverage for students. So usually, you know, if a student gets hurt, we have an accident report that's filed as standard procedure, and then they can if they file a claim, it would go towards their regular first point of coverage, their personal insurance first, and then this coverage. And so, and there's also an optional coverage for WIA sports that parents can also purchase as well. And what was interesting is I worked with the same, same broker for several years for the student accident insurance, and we've always used this Guarantee Life. And when I came up at the last Finance and Budget Committee meeting, I was asked to go out to bid on this. And so I had requested that, and I will do that for moving forward, because then he went out and he rebid it. And so we had it was a good call to do that. And I wish I would have done that sooner. So it was just nice to get it put out to market, and so we can get the best price available for the same exact coverage. So it's a $1,600 decrease from the original proposal from, I believe, April. So, and they're great to work with. So we really have I don't think we had hardly any claims last year or in this current year, but I think we had like $25,000 worth of claims the year before. Paying $8,000, we get value for what we paid for coverage. So, so it's good to have that.
Do you know how many years we've been doing it?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I'm not sure. I could look into that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the student accident insurance, motion by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Our next item, and I know you guys talked about this a little bit at our last meeting, the property liability and workers' compensation insurance coverage renewal for 2023-2024. So I would be looking for a motion and a second to approve that.
A motion.
Matthew Spalding, and is there a second?
I'll second.
Tony Blastelica. Any discussion regarding the coverage renewal for next year? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, and then Superintendent File submitted an administrative guideline. This would be administrative guidelines to a policy that we already have, which is 2240, controversial issues in the classroom. And so we have a motion and a second to approve the administrative guidelines.
Motion.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, second by Matthew Phipps. Okay, any, Jim, I'll go ahead and let
Sure.
you just give a little
Well,
background on this.
a couple of things, in terms of our policy identifies that administrative guidelines are my prerogative, to implement, for either having them required or how I'm going to carry out and fulfill policy. But I also have the opportunity to seek your approval on any given one. And I am on this one because I think it's important that we all make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what those parameters are that we're working in. And so, I tried to convey, and obviously I'm working out documents that are out there that other schools have considered, to build on this. And I also have that you have in front of you some additional edits because I had the attorneys look at this. And so that's red checked on your in front of you, and that's been incorporated in the final one that's here recommended for you. But again, it's what's the definition of controversy? And you've discussed some of that when you set that policy. And so I tried to establish in a little bit more detail, what does this mean from a parent's perspective? In terms of what they might look at, in terms of what they could understand that we are looking out for the interests of all students. And so that's, this is really to open up that discussion to make sure that I'm staying within the parameters that you adopted that policy.
Any discussion, questions,
Well,
comments?
yeah, I have a few, but I do think that the draft here still needs some editorial work. And
Okay.
there are places where the sentences are vague and aren't clear, and I would be happy to talk to you specifically, privately on this, but I don't think it's ready to be adopted in the present form. But in addition to that, I have some, I don't know if you'd call them philosophical questions or jurisdictional questions about the very strong statement of, you know, the role of parents in education. And, I mean, to the point where it's the parents, which shouldn't have the apostrophe there, play the primary role in decision-making in the student's K through 12 educational experience. I don't think that's a true statement. I mean, that doesn't reflect fact, does it?
As a parent of an MPST student, I 100% agree that I play the primary role in my child's education. Absolutely.
How is that, and how do you involve yourself in that way? I mean,
Well, what I would ask you guys is, what would be, Carrie, what role does if they don't have the primary role, what would you replace that role
well,
with?
you know, there's a bit of a confusion because in further down sentence on item 11, it says strengthening family school partnerships, plural.
Mhm.
You know, you can't have primary role and principal role in the sentence below 12. I mean, it seems to me that it's got to be at least a partnership. It's not a primary thing. I mean, I just don't think that we. And you know, statement 2 is parents are the children's first teacher and remain teachers and role models throughout their child's educational journey. It'd be nice if that was true, but I don't think either of those questions, I don't think either of those statements are true.
Okay, so what I would ask though is, what would you change it to? Or should it?
I would
or
change it
be
too, you
a-
know, I would change the first sentence to, you know, the partnership of parents and the parents and the district.
Okay.
As decision makers in students K through 12 educational experience. I mean, it's, you know, we have to assume a professional responsibility for providing an excellent education. It's not just a matter of opinion. And then, you know, we have people stand up, and I certainly think they have every right to say whatever the hell they want. But the fact is that there is a difference between just having opinions about, you know, what should be. And I know that Colin is very strong on parent rights. And, you know, honestly, I think parent rights are not absolute. And this would suggest that this is the case if you talk about a primary role. I think there has to be a professional responsibility taken here, which I think we do. We take that. We try to the best of our ability to be sensitive to student needs, both intellectual and in terms of sports and extracurricular. And there may be some disagreements about that. Some parents may say, well, we don't agree with that. And I think that that has to be kind of adjudicated in a way. I think that's the role of the board. So I just don't buy into what's really a political, which is really a political issue on the parents' Bill of Rights. I mean, I don't know, you know, it's like what parents and how is that expressed and how is that implemented? And it seems to be a wide open barn door for all kinds of, like, quote unquote, to use a term that's being kicked around here, special interest, involvement and interference with our professional responsibilities.
Parents are?
I would say that the Parents' Bill of Rights thing is very much a political issue, which has been interjected into, you know, education. And I think that the real facts of the matter is there's a partnership here. And I think that we shouldn't do anything to weaken the professional responsibility we have as a school system to provide, in our professional judgment, the best education we can afford and we can produce for all the children of the district. And I don't, you know, and if there's questions, certainly if there's questions about religious or value issues, you know, under the whole stuff that deals with sex education, students can be excused from certain parts of courses, but they can't be, you know, we're not going to be changing the courses because, you know, we're not going to be changing the courses because, you know, three people get up in public statements and say they don't like the way we're doing sex education. There are opportunities for students to be excused from certain aspects of the course of study. But I don't think that you want to have, you know, a town meeting to discuss, to decide what the curriculum of the Manitowoc public school system should be. So that's my pitch. That's, you know,
This is specifically to touch on what you said, is that, you know, I think you were getting more into the educational and curriculum type stuff, but this is to keep, like it even says in number 4, the school day, to keep the school day focused on educational learning. This right here is for those specific controversial issues. And those parents, i.e. me, have a right when it comes to what a teacher is going to teach my daughter, if it's regarding any of those controversial issues or anything that's in here, for you to state that the parents' control of their education is not paramount. I believe that was the exact word you used. Well, I don't know, paramount, I believe that's.
This isn't a discussion
Either way,
between the two.
is outrageous. I've said it before I was even on the board, when I was standing behind that podium, that the control of my daughter's education, I am the ultimate authority when it comes to that, period. And I will always give power to the parents when it comes to what their kids are being taught. And this just solidifies it, and it takes out a lot of confusion and question on what can and cannot be. This is not an entirely different policy. This is, like he said, it's a guideline to help with the policy that we already have. This is very, very necessary, because I do find a lot of people have questions. We've even had people in public comment come up and ask about certain of the controversial issues. You know, do I have to worry about that? I believe it was last month. Do I got to worry about that with my kid in school? You know, whether it's the bathrooms or anything else. And this is a way for us to communicate and let them know these are the guidelines in here. This is us telling you solidly in our policy that that's not going to happen here. So
Okay,
I think it's
anybody else?
necessary.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to understand this, because being an administrator in the district, going through the school district, whenever there were issues that were controversial in a classroom, if a parent called, I'd call back, or we'd sit down, and I don't want Johnny in there during that time. Fine. Teacher would come in, there'd be an alternative assignment, something else they could do if they weren't going to be in the class at that time. That has always been there. My concern with some of this is, if 3 or 4 or 5 people come in, is the whole curriculum changed? There are controversies. You know, we talked science last month and adopting that program. I got home and read an article. There's a group now, the Flat Earth Society, that wants that taught in science, because they have a group, and it's a special interest group. So do we have to do that now?
That's a controversial issue. It would go against our thing. No.
Is it or not? So my question is, why we have the ability for parents, if there's something you don't like that your daughter's going to have in that class, to say, hey, can I take her out for a week or 2?
Was when you did that, when you were
Wait a second.
actually,
I
oh, wait, go ahead. Sure. Fine.
When that happened, many times after a day or 2, they'd come back in and go, hey, we talked at home and he wants to go to the class and find out what's going on. Okay. But part of that also is trust that that teacher, you know, I keep hearing about indoctrination, and it's like indoctrination doesn't work, or the Soviet Union would still be around. They had 45 years of indoctrinating kids and people, and people are smart and they want information. And when you get information on both sides, you get smarter, you get more intelligent, you can make a decision. And my fear is if we start doing too much with this, are we going to take away the ability for our kids to think and make a decision later on in life? And is a vocally large group of people or a vocal small group of people going to change what the MPSD is going to teach? And it has to come down to the professionals on this board within schools and classrooms on what is part of the curriculum we need to teach our kids. So I agree, parents are the primary person. Okay? I have done that with my kids, but I have to have that partnership with the school district and some trust in what they're teaching. My other concern with this is, what if there isn't a good guy like Matt at home taking care of his daughter? Yeah. What if there isn't a stable home that doesn't have parents that are there and care of? So does the school just, that's hands off, that's not our job because the parents are there and that's their life. Sometimes those kids need somebody at school to be there for them because there's nobody at home that cares. And what do we do for those kids? Are we going to have those kids? I don't know. But it scares me when we start saying, can't do this, can't do that. It's a parent's right. You know, we have to have that ability to trust the professional in the classroom. We have to have that ability to trust the kids that are learning, that they're going to learn and they're going to discuss. They're going to learn from that discussion. I learned the morning we went out for coffee, Tony. I learned that day, even though we probably disagree on a lot of stuff. I learned because we talked. And if we don't have those discussions, I think school, MPSD is going to have some problems. We're going to have problems with the kind of kids we're turning out.
Matthew Phipps.
Great discussion so far. I just kind of want to bring back a little bit of state law and how this affected our expulsion hearing. I won't talk about the expulsion hearing, but state law says that any minor under the age of 18 cannot give consent to anything. So no matter what. And in that framework, who does make the decisions for a minor in the state of Wisconsin under the Constitution of Wisconsin? It's the parent or guardian of that child, minor. And with your answer, Biff, the parent, if there was no parent at home, I can't think of the term right off the top of my head, but I've known other children that have asked for their rights to be given to them because there had been no parent at home. If somebody else has showed up, thank you, that's the term. And that has happened numerous times in this district with students in the last, how many years? I don't know exactly, but that's that instance to answer your question. So if you don't have a parent, or if you do have a parent, the parent has given the accountability to the child to make sure that they are being protected. So how we regain accountability to our children is having a parent or guardian infuse correctly 100%, giving them the authority to make decisions for their children, because children are growing and learning and developing. And until they become what the state of Wisconsin is required as an 18-year-old, their decisions can be made by their parent. So with that thinking, the parent needs to be the glue that holds a child. Otherwise, obviously, they shouldn't have kids, but that parent is the one making the parental decisions, the educational decisions for that student. So just in along those lines, to try to pull the strength away from the parent any more than it already has and try to use different language, like, I mean, I understand the certain situations, it's just the legal definition is not being followed if we're starting to go off on a limb and making minors make their own definitions of what they think is right for them until they're 18 years old. I know it sucks. I remember I was 17. I want to go buy my cigarettes so I could say I could smoke a cigarette. Well, that's the state law at the time, or I couldn't go vote, or I didn't sign up for the service. But that's what the state of Wisconsin has made for the law. Why don't we just follow the law and give the parents the rights that they're supposed to have? Let's not go gray and start giving the parents, give the school system more rights than they should.
Tony?
I think we have to look at this in the context of the policy, the guidelines intended. And that policy specifically relates to controversial issues, right? So how do we define a controversial issue? You know, anything that's got different sides of support per policy or, you know, in the community that's economic, political, religious, or social. You know, so there's a wide variety of topics that could fall into that category. And ultimately, I think we need to tread very carefully. You know, there's some good points made on both sides here. And I think, you know, I would like to think that everyone on the board is united in wanting to help students that need it, that may not have the family support at home. Where I'm going to push back a little bit is relying on the government or the state to take that spot, right? So I think we should look at, you know, if that's an issue, then that's a separate issue that we're probably not going to solve here, right? And I'm not sure what we can do with policies for that. And I just don't like the idea of suggesting that parents don't have the final say. And there can certainly be collaboration and suggestions and input, but ultimately parents should have the final say. And it's going to be a
Final
very,
say on what? I don't understand what you're saying.
well, I guess what I'm saying is when it comes to controversial issues and what their child's exposed to in the classroom, you know, they should be in the know on that.
All right, that's what we should say then.
Yeah,
We
well,
shouldn't say they have absolute authority to make decisions bearing upon their child's education. I mean, all I'm saying is,
Okay, no,
honestly,
wait
I've
a
taught
second.
for like
Wait-
40 years.
Wait a second, okay? We need to let everybody get their point out before everyone goes again.
Okay.
Tony?
Yeah, so again, my thought is we need to be mindful of that and just ultimately, I think it's going to be very difficult to convince the community that the parents' rights are going to be equal to or less than what the school thinks.
Okay, can I, is it my turn now?
No.
Isn't it?
I just wanted to clarify, one of the things that's been missing in our school district is really defined and guaranteed and viable curriculum that the board has adopted. Okay, and that's much what we're talking about. And you've also, by the controversial policy, have identified that in proper context of certain curriculums, this controversial issues, you know, could even be something that's beneficial to discuss. But when you have something that is defined, and again, remember, what we're doing here is we're going through and identifying what curriculum is missing so that we get those curriculums posted, and then those and the materials that go with it, and that stuff is even available on the website, so all can see it. And also, this policy is not at all intended to do anything other than what the law requires of us. Also, you know, so it's within those parameters. But I think sometimes by having the clarity of what our agreed upon curriculum is, will solve a lot. You know, in terms of, and then it provides opportunities if it is controversial, and parents obviously can see, you know, they could opt out of something.
Yes.
Carrie, please.
Yeah, okay.
Please. Jim? Okay. I wanted to say, just a couple things. One of the things is that when I look on here, the idea that, first of all, number 5, all students deserve to feel welcome at school, regardless of religious beliefs, race, ethnicity, or sexual orientation. So I don't see where having this administrative guideline specifically saying that would have people not feel welcome at school. Kids don't feel welcome at our school all the time for lots of reasons. I just talked to a student the other day that has dropped out and gone full virtual because of the amount of bullying that has happened to him. So no student should be treated in a manner that some of the public came and talked about, any student for any reason. And part of the problem is we have created a culture where we do not have reprimanding students for the amount of bullying that we're doing, regardless of the policies we set, they're not being enforced. And I think that this says that I expect personally, if this goes through, that Jim mandates to his team and administrative team that it stops. Teachers that have sexual orientation are bullied and have left here by being called things because of their sexual orientation. So I have a huge problem with any kid that is treated poorly in our school system. And it's happening now, and it's happened for the existence of education. So that's one thing I want to say. So we specifically say here that that's what I expect this guideline to do. I also, number 8, consideration of controversial issues has a place in the instructional program of the district when related to instructional goals of the course of study and when introduced and conducted properly. The content is age appropriate and is without bias or intent to otherwise cause harm or disruption. The fact of our policy, controversial issues policy, says, number 8, it says specifically that if a teacher wanted to bring in flat earth, Biff, they could, as long as they're also talking about round earth. So there's no reason why you can't bring, I will talk about one student asked me to help with an assignment that they had, and I still haven't had a chance to talk to him. But Mr. Saraki at Lincoln, he teaches history. He had his project was, he gave them a list of controversial topics, one which is abortion. They had 4. Now, a lot of people, oh my gosh, I mean, how divisive in this country is abortion? Anyone want to argue that? Quite, okay? So Mr. Saraki, for the past however many years, has been running this assignment. So 4 students, 2 kids take the position of pro-abortion and 2 against. Now, has Mr. Saraki, that anyone know of, been disciplined? Fired? No, I think he had a long career here, and I applaud Mr. Saraki for having an assignment like that where what Biff said, right? Every controversial issue that is out there is for students to debate and discuss in a collegial manner. And that is what we are asking the controversial issues policy to do, is just that. It doesn't say we will not talk about any controversial issue. But number 1, it needs to be relevant to our curriculum. And let's look at our science curriculum. For the last 25 years, we haven't looked at our science curriculum to the point where we had to quick do it because no one's looked at it. So we don't even know what's in there. Second of all, would it surprise you that in our elementary schools, in the science arena, that some elementary teachers don't even teach it? You know why? Because we don't have a curriculum. So there's a lot of things that we can be outraged about our curriculum, if you want to go there. But it is not controversial issues. And I will say it again, nothing in our policy says that we will not talk about controversial issues. And Biff is right. It's not about indoctrination. And I don't think that our teachers have overtly been indoctrinating our students. I certainly wasn't. But what we did in our policy was to say there are 2 sides to a story, and we want those both presented. And I think that that's fair. And that's what we want. We don't want to give them what to do. We want them to look at both sides. And that's all we've ever asked. So I don't have a problem with that. And the other thing we talk about here, these rights include curriculum appropriateness and transparency. Parents should expect their child to be appropriately challenged and supported. We get a lot of times parents saying, I have no idea what my child is being taught. So we are going to have an actual database where you can go and click a button, and you're going to know exactly the topics, exactly the assignments. It's going to be more transparent than Manitowoc has ever seen. And I've seen a demo of it. It's going to be created. We are going to rotate and look at our curriculum, and parents will be able to look at that curriculum and say, I want to opt my child out. So again, I don't see anything. Oh, I guess the last thing I would say about student privacy and safety, someone talked about safe spaces. If every single room in our school isn't a safe place, then there's something wrong with our district. There is no teacher that should not be providing a safe space for our students, regardless of what they believe. And so again, that is something that, in my opinion, is not changing by this policy, but saying that we respect all students. There's another one on here, or maybe somebody asked about it. Am I going to be able to go to a teacher and talk about my sexual orientation? If a student comes up to them and says that, of course they're going to do that. They're also going to talk about rape. They're going to talk about drug use. They're going to talk about a lot of things. But it is not the school's job or a teacher's job to take that on themselves. That is why we have community outreach. That is why we have school counselors. We have how many people dedicated in our district just for discipline alone? We have a mental health coordinator, a safety coordinator. All that is there. When you say kids don't have a stable home, you know what we do? We feed them. We provide lunches. In the summer, we provide food. When a kid comes with dirty clothes and a student feels bad, we have a whole room and our nurses go and they provide them with clothing. So to say that we aren't doing anything for kids that don't have a stable home is ludicrous. And everything in this policy assures that our district and our administrators know exactly how we feel.
What about the bathrooms?
That's all I have to say.
Pronouns
Stacy,
in bathrooms, we want to hear it.
Stacy, I
Carrie.
couldn't agree more with everything you said. I couldn't agree more with everything you said. I feel just totally misunderstood in the issue that I brought up. And I noticed that you looked at me a lot when you were
I didn't mean to.
when you were
I didn't
making
mean
your
to.
presentation,
Not
as if I
intentional.
was in disagreement with any of the points you were making. I mean, I think, the specifics that you referred to, like all students deserve to feel welcome in school, etc. Couldn't agree more. The statement on consideration of controversial issues, number 8, couldn't agree more. Okay, I was even the one that when we adopted the policy, I agreed wholeheartedly that teachers shouldn't put their thumbs on the scales and personally declare what their opinions are. I mean, I think that, so the only thing is I want this policy statement to say what it's about, and it's not about parents being the primary role, the primary decision makers. It's about controversial issues. That's what the topic sentence number 1 should be. It shouldn't be anything about, the absolute power of parents. This should be about, the proper relationship of parents in school regarding controversial issues. That's what it should be about. It shouldn't be an absolute statement about, parents being lifelong models, et cetera. That has nothing to do with this. So I was just suggesting an editorial change to change the focus so that everything else down the line is consistent with the opening statement. That's called like topic sentence, and consistency.
Yep.
So I think we should get out of the debate about what authority parents have and what they don't have. This is not about authority. This is about how we manage, how we deal with the relationship, the way we deal with controversial issues, and whatever role parents have in that can be clearly stated among the things, you know, among the
Thank you, Karen.
statements. So
Okay, thank you.
that's it.
Okay. Anyone else? Bill?
I agree with much of what you said. One of the things that came up tonight, there are stickers. I think I had mine on my door when I was at Lincoln. Safe place for all. You are absolutely right that a school should be a safe place. But sometimes a student has to read that it's okay if I go to that person, to that teacher. Because not all the teachers are the same and not all the teachers interact with kids the same. But if they see something, they know that's a good place to go. You just, it's a validation that, hey, I need to talk to Dr. Trask because something came up. So those kind of things is we got to go back and remember what we were like at high school or junior high or even grade school, that sometimes when I start reading policies like this, I worry that teachers aren't going to be open to help when somebody comes up. Okay, that they will go, I don't know if I want to go there because I was told not to ask questions. I'm just glad that nickname thing isn't in here because I would have had the wrong name all through school. But we have to design this so the students and the teachers will feel safe if somebody asks a question and not go, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to get in trouble. You know, and I think that's what happened. You're right that we provide a lot of services for kids that don't have parents. We aren't scratching the surface. Okay, there's a church in town that lets people sleep in their basement because they have no place to go. And you got to be 18 to go there. But I remember being an AP and there were kids, they would just hop from bed to bed to bed because they had no home to go to. And there was no social services that said, hey, you can stay here. So we have to realize there's kids like that. They aren't going to have the Mr. Spalding to go home to, you know, that's going to give them a hug at night. We got to realize that this can be said a different way. Parents have the right that you know, my 3 kids, those are my kids. They have that right. But again, it's a partnership. Hey, come on in and talk to us. I love the idea of the curriculum online. Good parents in the past did that without internet. But just give more people the opportunity to do that. I love that. I just think we could rework this to make it said in a different tone. On that.
Yeah.
I agree with the safe space for all. Honestly, I would propose that we put that very sign you're talking about on the front of all of our schools. Doesn't have to be on the teachers, because like Stacy said, the entire school should be a safe space. And then when you're talking about where children are sleeping at night and things like that, I think you mentioned that 2 of your boards that you're on, because that's a city council issue. I mean, we can't, as a school district, control certain one of those things. Like Matthew had mentioned earlier, you know, if the child doesn't have parents, or if they become emancipated and they're in charge of their own lives at that time, I can understand. But you may not think that person's a good parent. Not really. I don't think they're very good, but it does not matter. They are the parents, and they are in control of what they do. It does not matter whether you think they're a good parent or not. I know you're looking at me funny like that, but the fact remains is, if that's their parent, whether you approve of the way they parent or not, it's not the school's decision to have make any decisions about that. So, I mean, it seems funny to you, but
Why are we talking about that?
You brought it up.
Because they're minors.
Because they're minors.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I would. What are we? You know, there's a lot of documents attached here, and I noticed that.
Yeah,
the attorney drew up there's some parts that are missing here. So can we speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So in board book, there is the memo from Jim. And then there is the current controversial issues. I'm sorry, there's the controversial issues in the classroom administration guidelines that Jim originally sent us. Then there is,
Use the time.
oh, I'm
The
sorry.
final edit would be 4 o'clock.
So
4:39, right? Is that the
Right,
final
so
edit one?
then we got back today the legal edit from the attorney that was at today at 4:43. So that is the one that is in front of you. And then the
attachments are there two additional, and just the time is, it's how I uploaded them. One went first.
Sure.
The order,
Yeah,
it's
okay,
not
we can
necessarily.
declare what.
But the final that we were looking at is the one at 4:39, correct?
With the legal edit, yeah, okay. I didn't
yes,
see that.
yes.
I just,
Yep. And then
Because that has the rest.
and the
of it.
one with the legal edit that's in Oregon at 4:39, that's the,
Final version?
yes, that has it all. So you're right. This one in front of you doesn't have every page. And then the final thing on there is the actual policy.
Nice.
So we would be voting on the guidelines
with the legal
with the
edit.
legal edit is what we'd be voting on.
The draft administrative guideline, yes.
Okay, so that's, yeah, 'cause that includes
You
that.
don't have that.
I know, I don't have that, but I have the old ones. Sorry.
I can show
never
you.
mind.
I can show you.
It's okay.
Tony, do you have any other?
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to clarify which one was gonna be on there and, you know, just looking at the administrative guidelines. You know, I feel we might want to consider, and I'm gonna punt this back to the administrative team on it, but the section on student personal and gender identity.
Yep.
We may want to consider a separate policy for that.
Absolutely, yeah. It's got nothing to do with controversial issues.
Well,
it is.
Well, it is a controversial issue, but it doesn't have anything to do with policy on controversy.
Well, I'm just, I think the administrative guideline is not a policy, right? So there's a policy.
Correct.
And then there's an administrative guideline.
Correct.
So the administrative guideline, if the way I understand it is basically, I'm not saying it can't stay in there. I'm just saying legally, and again, we might need to talk to an attorney.
Sure, to add a policy that's.
We may need an actual policy that addresses that. And again, you know, I realize there's strong opinions on various sides of this issue, but you know, in public input tonight, we heard about what happened in Sun Prairie. And I think all of us would like to avoid that from happening here.
Yes.
Right? Where we have a biological male that walks through a locker room and there's women, right? There's little girls.
But that's.
So I think, you know, let me finish, please.
Yeah.
My point is that I think a lack of good policy can result in situations like that. And that's not me making things up. That actually happened. And it's just a few hours from there. So I think, you know, these are things that we need to address. And, you know, content wise, I agree with everything on here. I agree with parents being notified of the pronoun issue. I don't think there's any way that we can advocate to hide things from parents when it comes to that. So I really like the language in there. I just want to, we may want to explore a separate policy on that. And I'll punt that back to you guys to figure out the best way to structure that.
Stacy.
Just hang on, does anyone else, well, but if anyone else that hasn't talked a second time is what I'm looking for.
There's always one for that.
Yeah. Okay, I agree with Tony. I mean, I think we should cut this off after deeply held family values and have a separate policy for everything below that. And that should be, because these are controversial issues. But the thing is that this document here from, you know, from page 1 to halfway down, 3/4 of the way down page 2, deals with how the Manitowoc Public School System will deal with controversial issues. How, you know, and that, you know, and the statement of, you know, what the assumptions and expectations are about the dealing with controversial issues. Not about, you know, who's, you know, and then after that, student personnel and gender identity, I think that's a different thing. That's not, this is like fish and, you know, and buffaloes or something. It's like, it's not the same stuff. It's apples and oranges, I guess is the normal way to say that. So I just think that we, you know, I think everything from student personnel, gender identity on down deserves a separate discussion and a separate statement of policy implementation.
I think you could have both.
Okay, I would like to offer a suggestion in reference to that. Since this is administrative guidelines, and administrative guidelines can be for many policies, which I think you've identified that I think this would cover many policies that we have or don't have. But I think that what I would propose is voting on the administrative guidelines and then have our administration identify the policies that we do have that make reference to these guidelines, and then put forth any other ones if we don't have them at this time. Because I think that I don't think the guidelines, in my opinion, wouldn't change. I think that they probably help craft the policies. So,
So when we approve these, they become a policy, correct?
No, they're guidelines. These are guidelines.
no, these are just
But
guidelines.
it's board approved.
It doesn't have to be,
This is under the purview of the superintendent.
but Jim brought it forth because he wanted it to be voted on. So that's why there's a motion in a second to adopt the guidelines.
Right. We have the, so we couldn't send it to the core policy. The committee of the whole to discuss and try to work that out before we vote on a finished product.
Yeah.
Why couldn't we do that?
We could.
Possibility.
I mean, personally, I don't think that it's going to change.
Well, I just say, if we're gonna do this, this was given to us. Okay? There has been a good discussion about it. And if we're going to adopt it, I think it should reflect some of that discussion we have rather than just taking what it is. And that's why I'm saying if we sent it to the committee of the whole, which is a discussion group, and sit down with Jim and go through this, I just feel more comfortable with that rather than just adopting it and then looking at it. It's to see it.
I'd like to vote on it right now. This is kind of been beaten down, so I would make my opinion to vote now.
Motion.
The motion was already made and was seconded. All I can do is call the question. I'm not gonna do that right now, so.
So is it
Are we
Stacy's
done
motion?
talking?
I motion.
I seconded it. We discussed it.
Well, there's a motion and a second to adopt the administrative guidelines.
Yeah.
And mine really wasn't, I really didn't make anything different except that the administrative guidelines will need to be reflected in lots of different policies that we have.
Right.
So it's not just unique to the controversial issues in the classroom.
And if there's grammar errors, it's under the purview of the superintendent in our policies to make corrections if there's needed to be corrections on a grammar side. That's already in our, so that's not pertinent to this discussion.
Grammar.
How do the guidelines work? Is there like a first read, second read, or is it?
No, this is technically superintendent files.
If I can clarify, it even says adopted. Your policy, there's policy in there for administrative guidelines and policy. On policy, it requires, a first and a second read. There could be emergency situations where you could actually vote on it. Administrative guidelines are the purview of the superintendent, but the superintendent can also ask for your approval. And I did here just because I thought it was significant enough to make sure we are on the same page.
Okay. And the motion is up to approve or adopt the draft admin guideline board of education policy. This one that we're looking at, he seconded it and we're questioning it.
Right, and I would, I would support the vote, with the directive, or just, I should say, the understanding to Jim and his administrative team that, we want to see how each of these are going to coincide with, existing policy that we already have, and also any new policies that we might have to adopt, that those will be presented and discussed and formally.
I totally agree. This is an issue that's been very challenging to navigate through. And that's why I wanted to bring this to your attention, and I appreciate the exchange that we've had already, today.
All right, so any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to say, I think we should vote against this. Number one, I don't think that the final draft is in good enough shape to adopt it as is. I mean, there's stuff like, that needs to be inserted, needs to be clarified. And secondly, I think that the superintendent is making policy for the board on student personnel and gender identity stuff, and on, pronoun stuff, and on bathroom stuff, that, we have to have a say about that in terms of a policy.
What do you like about the bathroom stuff?
I didn't say I didn't like anything about it. I just said it, I just don't think that the superintendent has the authority to make that policy.
Do you agree with the fact?
Okay, so he's not making a policy. These are guidelines, and he's going to.
These are guidelines that say expected behavior on the part of either students or staff.
Yeah.
This has to do with, the whole content, the content of the Manitowoc Public School System in terms of these issues. I mean, these are not just guidelines. These are like declarations of policy. And I think that we shouldn't vote on. I think we should vote no on the policy. Take up what Biff said, and then have a further discussion here where we can refine things that need to be refined, and to I think, exert our responsibility in terms of dealing with the issues of gender identity, etc.
I would like to, I'd like to amend the current motion on the floor to say that we would approve the administrative guidelines as is. And they will, with specific to the, I gotta grab this other page here because I want to say it correctly. Where it starts on page 4, so student personal and gender identity, that we would adopt the guidelines, but that the superintendent would not act on these until a policy is set in place that says, reflects what the guidelines do.
I'm not gonna.
No.
I-
Second?
It's my motion, and I don't want to amend it. And the reason being is because it's still a guideline, and if he puts a guideline in effect, I expect him to back it up. Now, I do believe that we should develop a policy that includes that. But that could take the next couple months, and it's all summer vacation anyway right now. I guess in my personal opinion, we should work on that and get it going right away, but I want to keep the motion that it's been motioned and seconded to approve this guideline, and again, to Constable.
So without a second, that motion fails. So we have the original motion on the floor. Okay, no further discussion. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right, motion carries.
Shane.
Okay, the next item is just remarks. Did anybody plan on attending the
If you're so
event?
bothered, homeschool your own kids.
Does anybody,
How about we listen to the students instead of just the parents?
does anybody plan on going to the leadership conference in July at all? No. All right, and then
Future meeting date.
future meeting dates. So our next meeting is June 27th at 6 p.m. I would need to be virtual for that meeting, which is fine. I just didn't know, would everyone want to be virtual? It's easier to hear. If not, we'll just do as we usually do, and I will just remote in.
I like being in person, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
No, perfectly fine. Okay.
22nd, you're saying?
This is 27th, June 27th at 6 p.m.
I'll be virtual that night, so more than likely.
Okay.
We need the meeting, we really need that.
It's probably going to, we might have some hires and things that we need to have. I
We're
can't
also gonna
imagine it'd be,
revisit what Angela was talking about earlier with the donations, remember?
right, and the
We wanna
donations that
get that
Angela
clear.
had.
Also, CH type things to,
There's a
Yeah.
HER report that we have to look at, so there are some things that we'll have. So next meeting, June 27th at 6, and then, there are a lot of vacations and stuff in that first 2 weeks of July with administration, so, there will not be, the first meeting of July. We will not have that first meeting. But we will meet, July 25th, at 6 p.m.
Will we have public input on that one?
on July 25th, if you'd like it. I mean,
Well,
since we don't.
every month we normally do it. If we're gonna miss that first one, I'd
We're
like to
gonna
hear
do a retreat.
Okay.
from the public.
We're gonna do a retreat.
But that's, yeah, so the
Okay.
next thing, so July 25th would be at 6 p.m. That would be, our only meeting that we would have, in the month. And then,
And we request public input.
and we request a public input, so that'll be on July 25th at 6. And then, August 8th, so that's our first meeting, administration, and we're gonna try to keep the agenda short business meeting. But we'd like that to be, kind of like calling a strategic planning session, to look at kind of the things that we talked about with Mike. We're gonna look at a lot of the data that we have. We're gonna be setting some goals for the school year. We're gonna sit down with the administrative team, giving a report on, where we're going, for the school year. I'd like to change that to 5 o'clock if everyone is okay with that, because I think that's gonna be a longer meeting.
That's the eighth, the August eighth.
That August 8th, yeah. So if we could start that at 5 o'clock. So we'll try to keep our, business meeting short and then go right into that. The other thing I wanted to say was this June 27th, meeting, that I will bring, some information. We talked about having our, committee of the whole, talking about our governance model. So I will also bring some information on that we can talk about at that time. Okay. So I believe those are all the meetings that we have coming up. Okay, so the next item is we do need to go into closed session. The Board of Education will vote to convene in closed session for the purpose of considering the following matter: considering the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. This meeting is authorized pursuant to section 19.85 subsection 1C of the Wisconsin statutes. We will be covering the superintendent evaluation progress goals and objectives and the superintendent contract. And we do need a first and a second to go into closed session.
So,
Fifth and
I'll move.
Matthew Phipps, okay. And we do need a roll call vote to move into closed session.
Craig Hansen,
yes.
Matthew Phipps,
Yes.
Stacy Seldner,
Yes.
Matthew Spalding,
Yes.
Carrie Tripp,
Yes.
Tony Vosdelka.
Yes.
Okay, we are now in closed session. And could we, can I have a motion and a second to have just a brief recess?
Yeah.
Motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
1971?
61.
Yeah.
I started skipping in the center in 1972.
Dave went to McKinley too. Yeah, he was one of the last classes.
Who was one of the last ones?
Dave, when McKinley was in elementary school, he was one of the last
really?
classes
Oh.
there. Yeah. Brady, are we ready? We're on? Okay, so we do need to, vote to come, out of closed session. Does that need to be a roll call vote, Lori?
No, not to come.
Okay, all right, so, Spalding made it a motion. Do we have a second to come out of closed?
I'll second.
Okay, Phipps. Okay, Spalding and Phipps. Okay, it is, 9:41. We are back
We have
in,
to say yes or no.
oh, that's right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Any discussion?
No.
Okay, good. All right, so we have one item that we want to bring out of closed session, and that would be to we have a motion and a second to offer any type of raise for our superintendent.
I motion that we give them the same 4.5% we give everybody else.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. All right, any discussion about that? Okay, and so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Good.
And do I have a motion? That is all our agenda that we would have for tonight.
Can I, clarification with the contract? Are you extending it?
We are going to wait till January.
What we normally would.
Yeah, that's when we normally do it
So
for
right now, so when's my contract go through?
2024, June 30th of 2024.
Next year?
Yes. And
So
we
one
are,
year contract you have for me.
well, we're required to let you know about the extension in January, and that's what we've decided to do. Okay. All right. Okay, so any other, anything that needs to come before the board? Otherwise, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great.
Seconded, or who first?
All right, I moved.
Thank you.
And seconded by Biff.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
All right. So that's all we got.
I am. Yeah, my name we're limited my contract for a year, so.
I gotta go grocery shopping,
So I'm gonna go ahead and go through next year. Stay there.
Right, but we have until